To understand our world, we must look through the lens of why.
Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, kind of crazy cultural shift that is just taking the internet by storm right now. You know, for years, we've all been told to optimize, strategize, and carefully plan out literally every single move we make. But what if all that planning is actually the very thing holding us back? Today, we're looking at a radical, highly provocative rebellion against analysis paralysis, and it's completely changing how people approach their goals, their work, and just their daily lives. Look at this quote right here. The internet just invented a new word for stop thinking so much, and it's working. That is the exact reality we're diving into today. It is an aggressive, no-holds-barred pushback against our modern obsession with perfectionism. Okay, let's dive right into this. Think about how it feels when you're completely stuck trying to make a decision. Your brain is a car with the engine running, but the parking brake is firmly pulled up. You are burning an incredible amount of fuel, mental energy, but you're going absolutely nowhere. I mean, this analogy perfectly captures the sheer exhaustion of overthinking. You have all this potential for forward momentum, but your own mind has completely locked the wheels. Which brings us to the core question for today's explainer. Why has overthinking become such a massive, widespread problem in the first place? And why are people now rebelling against it using a really crude, controversial, but undeniably effective internet philosophy? To understand the cure, we really have to understand the disease first. So here's how we're going to break it all down today. First, the analysis paralysis epidemic, followed by enter the viral rebellion. Then, the neuroscience of action bias, applying the philosophy, the controversy and criticism, and finally, stop thinking, start doing. Let's jump into section 1, the analysis paralysis epidemic, the scope of the problem. So look, we live in an era of maximized optionality. Think about it. You have dating apps with infinite potential partners, career platforms with every job ever posted, social media feeds just endlessly scrolling everyone else's highlight reels. And this unlimited optionality, well, it hasn't actually made us freer. It's actually led to widespread indecision and this constant, exhausting background hum of self-evaluation. To really put this mental load into perspective, get this. Psychologists note that many people experience between 40,000 to 60,000 thoughts a single day. That's a ton of traffic. And when you're an overthinker, this mental traffic doesn't just flow freely down the highway, right? It gets stuck. It gets trapped in these repetitive loops, constantly ruminating about things that happened in the past or obsessing over worst-case scenarios in the future. We trick ourselves into thinking it gives us control and preparedness, but it really doesn't. And the data we have on this is genuinely alarming. A 2025 study titled Decoding the Emotional and Behavioral Triggers of Overthinking found that a staggering 81% of Indians surveyed spend more than 3 hours a day overthinking. 3 hours! Even more wild, around 60% of respondents admitted to feeling anxious over a single, simple text message. I mean, we are literally analyzing ourselves into complete mental gridlock. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference. Just look at the contrast. When you're trapped in overthinking, life is completely stagnant. You're isolated, just kind of watching the world pass by the window. But when you finally release that parking brake, your mind just explodes with colorful, dynamic, momentum-driven creative action. It's a total game changer. Which brings us to section 2, enter the viral rebellion, the birth of a new slang. Because, whenever a societal problem becomes this suffocating, the internet is inevitably going to generate a counter-movement. And in this case, it birthed a highly controversial, wildly viral subculture that serves as a direct, almost aggressive response to all this over-optimization. So the term the internet chose for this rebellion is retardmaxxing. Let's just look at the definition directly here. It's a slang term. It's a portmanteau combining a highly offensive word meaning stupid and the maxing suffix, which comes from online self-improvement communities and means to optimize or maximize something. Combined, the term basically means maximizing your ability to act without the paralyzing weight of intelligence, self-consciousness, and overanalysis. In short, it means intentionally shutting off your overthinking brain to just take fast, gut-level action. The viral evolution of this term is super fascinating. It actually first appeared as a niche slang term on the looksmax.org forum way back in 2018. It sort of bubbled under the surface for years until late 2025, when a men's advice YouTuber named Elijah Long popularized it in his videos, framing it as a philosophy for taking bold action. And then, By March 2026, it completely crossed over into the mainstream when prominent Silicon Valley tech billionaire Mark Andreessen tweeted about adopting the mindset. That really cemented its place in the wider cultural lexicon. Okay, moving to section 3, the neuroscience of action bias. Why being stupid works. Because actually, beneath all the crude internet slang, this trend closely mirrors some deeply established psychological, neurological, and behavioral economic theories. When we compare these two states side by side, the science is super clear. The overthinking mind suffers from prefrontal cortex overdrive. That's the brain's executive region, the part responsible for planning and risk assessment, and it's working so hard that it literally causes paralysis. The action mind, on the other hand, leans into what's called action bias. Behavioral economics shows us that taking action, even if it's a suboptimal or imperfect one, actually builds self-efficacy. It gives you real-world feedback and builds confidence in a way that just sitting there thinking about it never, ever can. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the neurology behind it. Experts note that taking fast, decisive action actively reduces your prefrontal cortex inhibition. It quiets down that really loud, constant monitoring mechanism in your head. High-performance athletes, expert decision makers, they use this exact same concept. They completely bypass the over-analytical brain so they can operate purely from trained instinct and muscle memory. All right, let's look at section 4, applying the philosophy, the framework for momentum. The real-world payoff of this viral trend is a very specific, actionable framework. Because honestly, you don't have to use the controversial slang to benefit from the momentum it produces in your business, your relationships, or your creative pursuits. So here is the 4-step framework derived from the trend. 1. Prioritize action over optimization. Just stop waiting for the perfect time and start immediately. 2. Decouple from judgment. Seriously, stop caring how your messy first attempts are going to look to other people. 3. Trust your instincts. You got to move fast enough that your brain simply doesn't have time to create a loop of doubt. And 4. Accept imperfection as the baseline. Just throw ideas at the wall. Your first draft is supposed to be rough. Which brings us to section 5, the controversy and criticism, addressing the slur. We obviously cannot discuss this trend without acknowledging that the naming convention of this movement is highly problematic, and it has attracted some very legitimate, serious criticism from a lot of different directions. We have to look at this impartially. So on one side, the critics, which include disability advocates, parents, educators, they rightfully point out that the root word is an ableist slur. Reclaiming it normalizes language that causes real harm to real people, and promoting thoughtless action can easily lead to genuinely reckless behavior. On the other side, the proponents of the trend argue that within meme culture, the term is used purely as an ironic, rhetorical device. To them, jokingly calling themselves stupid is just a specific tool to destroy their ego-driven hesitation, allowing them to prioritize momentum over perfection. And that brings us to our final section, section 6, Stop Thinking, Start Doing, the final takeaway. Regardless of how you feel about the internet packaging or the words used, the underlying problem this whole thing addresses is incredibly real. Let's summarize the ultimate lesson we can extract from this strange internet phenomenon. So, the crucial point we need to take away here is this. Overthinking is very rarely actual wisdom. Most of the time, it's simply fear dressed up as intelligence. We've learned that imperfect action is what actually builds confidence, and that momentum is the only true cure for feeling stuck and paralyzed. In a world completely overloaded with information, unlimited choices, and endless optimization advice, execution will almost always matter more than strategy. So it all comes down to a choice about how you want to interact with the world. You know the engine is running, so I leave you with this. Are you going to spend another year sitting in the driveway, mapping out the perfect, flaw-free route to your goals? Or are you finally going to release that parking brake and...
Why settle for shallow facts? Join the intellectual rebellion. Subscribe to Why Lens now.